Have you ever thought about how a simple bottle of alcohol is actually a masterpiece of history and patience? Humans have been enjoying drinks for thousands of years, but it took us until the 1700s to finally understand the science behind it. We finally gave it a professional name called ethanol and learned its chemical formula. Once we understood the science, it took another 200 years for engineering and business to catch up and turn it into a global industry worth billions. Today, ethanol is everywhere in our perfumes, our medicines, and even our car fuel. It is a perfect example of how the world changes when science and business hold hands. But here is the problem. We are facing a climate crisis that is moving much faster than the history of alcohol. We simply do not have 200 years to wait for our next big ideas to grow up. We need to find a way to make the future happen now. This brings us to a very simple but powerful idea. If we want to save our planet, we have to stop doing things one step at a time. We have to do everything at once. This is the starting point for a new way of thinking about innovation. We are moving away from the slow old way of working and into a fast world where scientists and business leaders speak to each other every single day. On the surface, we see the concept of scientific discovery. Many people think we are still waiting for a genius to invent a secret machine that will fix the climate. But the truth is that most of the science we need already exists. We already know how to catch the wind and the sun for power. We even have tools like CRISPR, which is famous for helping doctors find cures for diseases. Now scientists are using those same genetic scissors to edit the DNA of tiny bacteria. These little guys can actually eat carbon dioxide and turn it into useful chemicals like butanol. These chemicals are the building blocks for almost everything in your house, from the paint on your walls to the plastic in your water bottles. Today these things are made from fossil fuels, but the science shows us we can make them from thin air instead. The science is ready and it is waiting for us to take the next step. This leads us to a hidden assumption that often slows us down. We often assume that once a scientist makes a discovery in a lab, the job is basically done. We think that moving from a small test tube to a giant factory is just a matter of building things bigger. But this is where many great ideas go to die. Engineering is often seen as unglamorous, but it is actually where the real battle for the planet is fought. Moving from grams to millions of tons is incredibly difficult. It is like trying to make a fruit smoothie for a whole city. If you use a small blender, it works perfectly. But if you try to make a batch that is 1,000 times bigger, the motor might get too hot or the fruit might not mix well. Engineers have to be creative like artists and disciplined like soldiers at the same time. They have to decide if it is better to build one massive reactor or 20 small ones. They have to find ways to use standard parts like Lego blocks so they can build factories faster and cheaper. This engineering innovation is the bridge that turns a clever lab trick into a global solution. There is a structural pattern in how we have built our world that we must now break. In the past, we worked in a line. First the scientist found a fact, then the engineer built a machine, and finally the business person tried to sell it. This linear pattern is too slow for the challenges we face today. We need a circular structure where everyone is in the room from day one. When you bring a scientist, an industry expert, and an investor together, they start asking the tough questions immediately. The investor asks how the company will grow 100 times bigger in 5 years. The industry expert asks how the technology will fit into an existing factory. The scientist explains how much energy is needed to capture each ton of carbon. This dialogue can be full of heated debates and disagreements, but it acts like a rocket booster for progress. Instead of waiting for a problem to appear years down the road, they solve it before the first brick of the factory is even laid. This is how we move from ideas to impact at a speed that matches the urgency of our melting glaciers. We can reframe our entire perspective on the cost of going green. For a long time we have been told that being environmentally friendly is expensive. We have been told it is a sacrifice we must make. But we are starting to see a new reality called the green discount. Some startups are now finding ways to make products out of carbon dioxide that are actually cheaper than the old fossil fuel versions. For example, there is a white powder called calcium carbonate that is used in everything from toothpaste to car tires. Usually we get this by digging limestone out of the ground and burning fuels. But now we can make it by recycling leftover materials and using captured carbon. This is not just good for the earth, it is good for the bank account. When being green is the cheapest option, the whole world will switch almost overnight. This application of logic is how we scale solutions to a level that can actually change the atmosphere. This way of thinking applies to our daily lives in ways we might not even notice yet. Think about the mobile phone in your pocket or the sports camera you use on vacation. Some of these devices are now using a special material that reflects 93% of sunlight and radiates heat back into outer space. This material was first tested on melting glaciers to slow down the ice loss, and it worked incredibly well. But the business potential is even bigger because every building and every data center in the world needs to stay cool. When we find a way to turn a climate solution into a product that everyone wants, we create a powerful engine for change. We can start to imagine a world where our houses and our clothes are literally made out of the carbon that used to be a problem in the air. This deepening of our cooperation creates a sense of true optimism. We are no longer just hoping for a better future, we are actively building it with pieces we already have. We are creating consortiums where big consumer brands and small startups work together to replace fossil fuels entirely. This is a massive shift in human history. We are learning to behave like a single team rather than separate groups. When we look at the progress of the last 3 years, it is clear that the secret is not just better machines but better conversations. We are taking the 200-year journey of ethanol and shrinking it down to a single decade. We are proving that when we stop waiting for our turn and start working together, we can achieve things that seem impossible. The future is not something that happens to us, it is something we design together in the same room. We have the science, we have the engineering, and we have the business models. All we need now is the courage to keep moving fast. We are standing at the edge of a clean future that is better than anything we could have imagined a few years ago. It is a future where we no longer have to choose between a healthy economy and a healthy planet because they are finally the same thing. As we look at all these incredible new ways to turn carbon dioxide into the things we use every day, are you more excited about the technology itself or about the way humans are finally learning to work together to solve a global problem?